Before we start, I'd like to introduce Jolly. He's our new city administrator, and there's a few of us that have never met him. That's Charles, and I think everyone else you've met.
Yep, I've met everyone else.
Okay. Call the Stuart Municipal Utilities Council Chambers, tentative agenda, Tuesday, July 21st, 2026, 5:30 p.m. Roll call. Herrick?
Here.
Crawford?
Here.
Sherman?
Here.
Belden?
Here.
AB here. Agenda approval. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
How do you vote? Herrick?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
Belden? AB, yes. Consent agenda. Minutes of regular meeting, 6/11/2026, financial statement as of 6/30/2026, and bills as presented. You don't have any questions? Do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Okay, how do you vote? Herrick?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
Belden?
Yes.
AB, yes. Public forum. No one have anything? Okay, number 6, employment sharing agreement, utility attorney Steve Brick.
So I'll take this one. Steve Brick and I have been working together on kind of compiling this cost sharing agreement. So on the spreadsheet that we just shared with you this evening, the overall kind of city impact for the cost shared employees is about $432,000, but specifically for the utility budget, it's about $216,000. So we basically just looked at the last 5 years of kind of the breakout between what portion of the employees are paid out of city. So my city administrator position, the deputy city clerk, our full-time utilities clerk, and then our 2 part-time staff here in City Hall. And basically it's about a 50-50 split between city and utilities. So we got to that $216,000 dollar line figure there in blue. But for the utilities, one thing we want to mention is that 80% franchise fee that's being transferred to kind of help with that cost shared employee expense. So really the utility budget expense is $126,000, what you see there in red. And so for the next fiscal year, so fiscal year 2028, how we're going to budget in the future is basically a transfer out from the utility side, so the electric and water, into the general. That's one thing that we found with the audit finding was that they generally would like to see one kind of paycheck, but still having that cost share with that, so it kind of helps streamline that. But that $90,000 is what we're going to help budget for the budget amendment at the end of the year, so that currently the franchise fee gets deposited into the general fund. It's going to end up being moved into the electric and water to kind of help with that cost share for this year. But the next fiscal year would just be a transfer to kind of help so that we're not doing a budget amendment, to kind of help adjust for it. So outside of that, I think one thing we'll try to negotiate or into that agreement is a multi-year phase. So even though this is the amount for this fiscal year, when we get to the budget season, before we adopt the budget, the utility board would be able to see what the full projected number is for the next fiscal year, and then get to review that on an annual basis. So that way we kind of have that budget oversight before it goes to city council for full approval of the budget. So trying to help provide some of that, the protections there for both the utility board and the city council. Anything else that we're missing there on that cost share agreement?
No, I think the one thing we'd be addressing is a termination. So if the utility board or the city chose to have a full-time employee, so Jolly would no longer work for the utility board, for whatever reason, we'd have a process in place to allow a notification to occur before the budgets are set, in the spring, so that both entities would have the ability to plan for that in their budget. So that would be the only additional component that we'd have in this agreement.
So how would fluctuations in health insurance costs, pay raises, job duties, hire and fire be handled within that agreement?
Traditionally, it would be handled, they have to be an employee of somebody.
Right.
So those costs, if they're, in this situation, I think they're all employees of the city. So have them be under the city control and have the utility board be 50%. And then, of course, that falls in line relative to, well, if the utility board thought they could do it cheaper or get other employees, then of course you could have notice and separate, you know, or we're no longer gonna use the utility clerk or what have you. Have a notice provision, it carried through the year, because both the entities have to plan. But
if
then
something
upon
comes up that's-
termination,
But if something comes up, it's a personnel basis, that person's no longer with us, it's not gonna work in a budget situation, right? It'd be a termination, it could be, or someone leaves, and we wanna go to a different direction, we're not gonna wait till the next budget year for that situation to be resolved, right?
right.
So I guess, I don't like how this is set up, just my own personal opinion. It's just like, throw the money over the wall with no accountability to the utility side of the business. That's just my own opinion, I guess. I thought there'd be more structure to it.
Propose to address it. I mean, we
Well, I
can
don't know.
address it if the board has a different thought.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I thought there'd be more structure to it, where there'd be, maybe a dedicated person 100% to utilities, and that would be part of this. It seems like it's just a lump sum, job sharing agreement versus any accountability on the utility side at all. That's,
Well, there is accountability, and that if
but
the
it's all or
board's
none.
dissatisfied.
I'm just saying, it's all or none in this number. If we approve this, then it's a lump sum number. There's no escalation process or accountability underneath it. If there's 5 people underneath it, this is a one-time, one number type of deal, right? So
Well, I think what Jolly's highlighting for you is just the cost. So the city's been fronting the cost. At the end of the year, there's gonna be an adjustment for the fiscal year.
Right.
From the utility for the costs that were incurred. You could do it differently. I mean, you could have that cost shift monthly, or bi-weekly.
I don't think it's necessarily the cost. I'm saying the underlying management of that for personnel reviews
Yeah,
that get conducted on the utility side of the house, if there's errors, or if there's really good things that are going on, either side of it, how do the utilities manage that positive or
think this
negative
is-
situation?
this is probably the best time to kind of clarify what we talked about with the differences between the city council's authority and the utility board, if we can kind of dig into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah. So I guess I'm confused a little bit, Brian, as to how that would work. Somebody's gotta be in charge of the employee, and they're working half for the city.
Sure.
So, and they're being paid, they get IPers, they get the city benefits and the like, and there's costs associated with those.
Right.
If there's dissatisfaction, you put notice to the city that you're no longer plan on continuing to use that particular employee. Now,
What if we want to promote that person because they've done Jolly says this person's done A, B, and C, and they're going out of their way, and they're excelling in this, and there's a larger function. It could be either side.
Right.
And these are my questions. If I'm the only one, that's fine, we can move on.
This isn't
If that's
a-
the case, then we make a motion to give them a raise.
Well, I don't know, that's what I'm getting at,
Well,
about a
this
sharing
is- I mean-
agreement, it seems like we go from a W-2 to a 1099, we're paying for services, not employees.
I kind of like the clarity of where this is going, because I've never liked the ambiguity of where these employees lie. Like, and when you're doing job, wage increases, like the city council, they do something and then we do something, and, it's like, should we just have like an advisory approach to this whole situation, kind of like what we did with the hiring, which I thought the hiring process worked pretty well, where we give our opinion of, and information back to the council of, hey, this is what we're seeing from a employment standpoint of these individuals that are shared. Here's our recommendations from a wage perspective. The council can take that all into consideration with what they're doing as well, and then they make the decision. And at the end of the day, if we don't like that arrangement long-term, then we change that arrangement.
Then if we see what that wage increase might be before budget time,
That's a
I mean,
positive, yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
then I think we're all good. I agree with Neil, I kinda like this structure too, because I think from an employee standpoint, how many bosses do you want?
Yeah, so
You
the
know.
goal of this is to, like I said, streamline it. So we really looked at the last 5 years of how we were budgeting these 5 employees, and so it was legitimately 50-50 split. And so
Right.
we looked at, obviously, the revenue coming in on the franchise fee helps the
Yep.
utility budget. So you're looking at really 126,000, but as we get into the annual budget season, so before we adopt it in March, the utility board's going to see what the proposed budget will be for the next fiscal year. Potentially, we can build in that COLA, and then we can have those conversations of, you know, if we're not going in the right direction, maybe we try to scale back a little bit, but the focus really here is to provide clarity on our side, because as Steve was mentioning, the overall hiring, firing, the setting of wages is really the city council's prerogative, and the utility board is really there to provide recommendations. You can still do that at the annual budgeting process, but the official decision does come from the city council. So,
Okay, with this franchise fee, is this the highest it's gonna be, or could it
so
possibly be higher?
this is how much we received in the last fiscal year, so we just
Okay.
put that in there as a budget line item. I prefer to be conservative, so keeping
Right.
that at kind of what we received last year. It could be subject to change, we might receive more, we could receive less, but I think at this point, this is a pretty concrete number. I'd like to just move that forward for the
So is it
next
better
cycle.
not to make that transfer back and forth and just to leave that with the city and then we pay them less?
Right, that's what you're proposing.
Is that what you?
That's what he's
So he's
proposing.
doing that
Just
this
one
one
payment.
time and
Yeah.
then next year that won't happen at
Yeah,
all? Okay.
yeah, it wouldn't be, so like I said, we try to avoid the whole budget amendment thing, so this fiscal year is a little bit challenging, we're gonna have to have that budget amendment to help with that cost share, but in the next fiscal year, we're gonna have that as an actual transfer, like, so we can, with the recent audit finding, they mentioned that a lot of our cost shared employees are receiving 2 paychecks, ideally it's just one, so that, just for
Sure.
auditing reporting standards, it's much better that way, so.
So if you wanna promote someone in whatever month because they're taking off in the utilities, I don't know what the scenario is that you could come up with in the city hall business, but they're helping above and beyond on the utility side of things. You want them to become exclusive within utilities and you wanna lobby for that person. How does that happen inside this? Maybe the math is fine, I'm saying the policy, what's the policy or the procedure that hadn't been done for the last 30 years? We're all gone, and now we've just got this to go off of, right? That's what we were talking about before.
no, I'm gonna prepare an agreement.
Okay, that's what I'm missing here.
I was gonna prepare an agreement, and my goal here tonight is to make sure we have this discussion,
Okay.
and if there's something that I need to
Yeah,
look a different direction on, you guys let me know,
Sure.
and we're gonna put that in the agreement.
yeah, looking at
Um,
these other communities, you've got.
So this document is not the agreement.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's-
Yeah, we're just
This
reaching
is
out to
just,
members.
this fiscal year, this is what the plan is as far as equalizing
Sure.
what has happened this last year.
Okay. It's reconciliation for the last fiscal year.
Right. And the agreement I'm gonna put together addresses the 50% cost share going forward, and as Jolly said, it's simply gonna say, the utility board is gonna pick up 50% of the cost of these employees, and then the mechanism, and what they're gonna do,
Mhm.
what the employees do for the utility, what they do for the city. You know, every year, it should just be a matter of applying the percentage. I'm gonna add a provision in there about the 80-20 split on the franchise fee and how that's credited.
Okay.
And then how you separate. So to get to your point about promotion, it's a little bit difficult to address in a sharing agreement, because you have 50% of Jolly and several other
Sure.
employees that are doing duties for the utility. Well, the utility may feel as though Jolly deserves an extra $5,000.
Right.
You know, you could simply do that by saying, we want to give them a
So
one-time
it doesn't
bonus.
preclude us from doing something separate outside of that on the utility side if we want.
Right, but ultimately Jolly's an employee of the city, he's the city administrator.
Okay.
If the board wanted to go out and, because you have several employees that are 100% utility.
Correct.
Pat being one, and there's several employees that are employed. Well, they should be under the control of the utility board from the standpoint of promotions, hiring and firing and the like. And of course, city employees should be under the city for those purposes. But you can separate if, you know, it's just not gonna work out. There'll be a time frame to do that, to accommodate both your budgets. Obviously, we have a law we have to follow relative to your budgets, and that would allow you to do that.
Okay, so going back to when Ash started, and then this other ordinance came about for city administrator, that's kind of where that gap started. So then you'd have that agreement accounted for. So this would leave Pat as the only person that would not be within this, because our other folks are union. So they don't show up in this picture at all, so you'd have Pat excluded. So who does Pat report to in an organizational chart, or how does that get handled?
I'm gonna have to dig into
No,
that one a little bit more.
I'm just saying, that's all the documentation to support the numbers, that's the only reason I'm asking.
Well, I guess for me, if we wanted him to report to Jolly, we could do that, because that's no different than the other city employees reporting to Jolly, because he's also our,
That's the
he's our-
motion, that's the motion.
he's our administrator.
That's how we have it set up
Well,
right
that-
now,
Correct, so that's what I'm
that
getting
he
at.
does to Jolly and to the chairperson.
And the union, according to PERB, is the Municipal Utilities Union.
Right.
So they answer, you're accountable to PERB and the collective bargaining unit to follow that agreement. And when I say you, I mean the utility board. So it's difficult to suggest they're truly under the control of the city. Now, how you do things or have done things relative to the issue of the paychecks and medical insurance and all the benefits they get, I need to look into to make
That's
sure,
fine.
see how that's
Yeah.
being
We,
worked.
I mean, when we talked about this last month or whenever, we planned on it being a,
Yeah,
you know, back and forth a little bit, because our documentation and code and all that stuff doesn't support what goes on today.
Yeah.
So then that would leave Pat reporting to Jolly, and when we do raises, reviews, or whatever, that would just be
Us.
separate from, so that would be one review, there'd be the cost sharing, and then there'd be the union. So you have 3 transactions for personnel at least annually, right?
Yeah.
For reviews? Is that?
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Does the city front the money for Pat, for example, or does that come out of the?
No, Pat
Comes
is
out
on
of
utility,
the-
not
Pat's
the city,
paid
that's
directly
ours.
from the
Yeah, he's
utility.
our direct,
Yeah.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
you, yeah. And I'm just trying to understand what that looks like from an org chart and.
So some of those components I'm gonna need to separately
Yes.
address. But I plan to,
No, that's
because I know
fine.
you have 100%
Yeah.
employees and you have 50/50.
So the union contract is a 3-year deal?
4, is it
4.
3 or 4?
So is there a way that we can get, okay, but the current one's 4?
3.
So is there a way that we can align this sharing, that it aligns with the union, align the cost sharing agreement, that it would be ratified on a 3-year basis, or it follows the union transaction? So it's not,
Yeah, you'll be setting the pay on the 100%. Because you're gonna follow the collective bargaining agreement.
right, but I mean, on the sharing agreement, why would we even need to review this every year if we can align it with the union contract, so we only do it every 3 years, so it's not an ongoing question? Sure. Okay.
I don't think we need to review the actual contract or the agreement every year, but I would like there to be some sort of standardized every year. A couple of council members, a couple of utility board members are in a room with Jolly to discuss how things are going with,
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
the employees' recommendations for, hey, we've got these shared employees, what are we thinking for that wage increase? Has there been any problems? Has there been great things that have been happening, all that type of stuff? And have that just be a regular thing that happens on whatever month of the year, as part of this, just to continue with that collaboration type thing. I would also like to flush out more of the questions, what happens if the city continues to grow and they wanna hire a new employee, but the
We don't
utilities
need
doesn't
them,
need a
yeah.
new employee?
Good point.
Then is that a time when you talk about, the sharing agreement, or the city just hires that person out 100%? Or maybe for that one person, it's like, well, we decide there's 25% of that person will take and 75% that the city will take. How do we grow the organization over time with this
So you're
structure?
talking about a clause in the agreement that supports this, that says any future hiring or changes to this would be up for negotiations, or, I mean.
The table you have in front of you identifies the positions that are currently part of the 50/50 agreement.
Correct. Yep.
This agreement will simply say that it covers those employees.
Okay,
We can put in a mechanism that if either entity decides that it needs an additional employee, there'll be further conversations and potentially an addendum to the agreement, adding that position and the cost share. If that works. I mean, it's difficult to forecast because you don't know what facts and
Totally,
circumstances are
yeah.
gonna lead to you guys wanting to hire, either
Sure.
the city side or the utility side.
and if we don't need to, then that would be 100% on them and their decision.
And there could be a point where we decide we need like a city hall type employee,
Yeah.
100% on ours too. So,
Yeah, yeah. And you wouldn't really have a say in that. I mean, and the city'd be picking up the tab, right? So it, I mean, it's just the natural progression of how things are gonna go. They may need, put crosswalk guards everywhere, and that's not a utility issue, right? So, or you may think they could go out and read some meters, so you'll pay them some money. But deal with those circumstances when the circumstances arise.
Yeah, like I said, my goal, especially during the budget work session process, is to be more proactive, so we could potentially do a joint, budget work session with the utilities board and the city council, and we can kind of run through the utility side and the city side and kind of what we're thinking on a personnel standpoint, kind of on the next fiscal year, but as the community continues to grow, maybe we get to that point where, like we said, there might be a city hall employee that's paid 100% out of utility, but the whole point about the budget process is that we're having those staffing conversations before we adopt it. And so we don't want to get into the fiscal year and say, oh, we actually need another FTE that we didn't budget for. Those should be happening before you adopt the budget in April, so. So with that, I think just a recommendation for us to kind of move forward with developing the agreement based off of what we just talked about tonight. And then I think at the next month, we can potentially have a draft ready to go in August for your review. But a lot of feedback that we've taken notes on, and we'll be able to compile that into a draft agreement. So.
And you don't see that creating any risk to only having one employee that we're doing, or Jolly would be doing reviews on, that would be exclusive to us. So this sharing agreement has nothing to do with the utility superintendent.
Correct. It's just the city hall staff.
Right, so that would, in that agreement, it would probably need to be called out. This would be excluded in the current state.
I think the utility superintendent, I mean, Jolly's in a support role as the administrator of the utility, right? He's gonna devote some time to that. You have to decide how an evaluation of Pat Howie would transpire, right? You're the board.
Well, we leave that up, that's what I'm getting at, that should fall under what we're asking of Jolly, that's what, we had made that motion, what, a year ago or whatever?
Yeah,
So that's what I'm asking, I don't know, does that work within that sharing agreement that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's set out as duties
Okay.
for the utility board.
And I think in this annual collaboration meeting or whatever, like, if we're asking Jolly or whatever to do 20% more work in this area, then that's something that we'd wanna communicate with the council on and say, hey, we're asking for more time than what we have in the past. How does that fit into this structure? And the same would go both ways. And I think it's easy to work this stuff out as long as we have this continual communication on this thing so I just wanna continue to flush out those types of things that we wanna talk about over time as part of this agreement.
Yeah, I think you made a great hire in Jolly. The city and with the utility board's input, but he doesn't seem shy, so I think
That's the best part. That's the best part.
if you're working him hard, then I'm sure he'll tell you.
And just the aspect of anybody to be able to understand this as a new council member, new board member, new mayor, new whoever, that they can come in and understand from a document. I thought we were rolling just with this without this, the meat behind the math.
It was just a precursor.
That's
to get
fine.
Parameters in
No
place,
problem.
yeah.
Good to go.
Okay. So our recommendation is just go forward
Drafting
Is
the agreement.
Are you?
with the drafting, yes. You guys are okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, number 7, utility employee wages 2026 and 2027.
Yes. I'll make sure I mention that at the end, but,
Okay.
so with this, you see the memo in your packet, but, just did, like I said, a little 5-year analysis on, our wage increases over time, and so the median wage increase that we've seen is 4%, but cities typically try to match with the union negotiated contract increases, so, as you can see, that agreement goes through fiscal year 2028, but just with recent state legislative changes that are gonna be starting here fiscal year 2028, so July 1 of next year, the recommendation is going to be a 4% cost of living adjustment for non-union employees for this fiscal year, so not a multi-year, just a 1 year. Just so once we get to the budget season, we'll get to know here in the fall with CHIP's help, just what our taxable valuation target will be. That'll help us kind of project out what our revenue will be for the next fiscal year, and then we can kind of have conversations for what the next potential non-union increase will be. So it'll be kind of cities will now really be a 1 year at a time kind of long-term planning stage, and so it won't really be something where we can project out multiple fiscal years, because especially with the way Iowa assessment cycles work every other year, yes, we're set at 2% for our revenue increase, but that's not going to say that we're going to get 2% increase in taxable value. So for that, with that recommendation, I think 4% matches again what the union negotiated increases were. This would apply to all non-union staff, plus, again, Pat as well on the utility side is not a part of that agreement, so he would also get this 4% increase. But I think our recommendation today, as long as the utility board is in support, is it would go to city council next month for formal approval for, again, the non-union staff for this fiscal year, so.
So then next year there would be performance reviews done.
Yep, and so we're working, that's one thing we're working on, so it's on one of my many lists, so organizational chart, developing job descriptions, and then after that, having that all codified and kind of approved by city council is a formal performance review process. So the May, June cycle before the next fiscal year, it'll be reviews with, city administrator, utility employees to the utility board, but just to help kind of go through if they're achieving their benchmarks on their performance side, are they meeting their job duties and responsibilities? If so, then they would get the bump. If not, then we'll figure out either some plans of action to kind of improve employee operations and their performance, and kind of have that discussion and negotiation back to the council. But so we're vetting all that process out right now. But like I said, I think the first step is going to be having a formal organizational chart adopted, and kind of moving forward that way. But yeah, future fiscal year reviews.
So then that 4% may be, it may be adjusted based off of what that review structure shows. Like you would be giving different raises based on those reviews?
So, no, this current fiscal year.
Not this year, but go forward.
The next one going forward. So let's say the next fiscal year, we want to have another 4%. Before the employee can even get that, they would go through the performance review process, and then that would justify them getting the COLA,
Okay.
the cost of living adjustments.
So given that last conversation, is this potentially the last time we're approving a percentage? Because going forward, where the city council is actually paying paying for the employees and holding them as their employee, and we're just on the agreement side of paying a certain percentage of the total package of employees that are under us.
Yeah, so wage setting was typically under, the city council's priority, but this is really just a recommendation from the board to say, hey, you're good to go and move forward with that 4% for the non-union staff. So that's the purpose for this evening.
Okay. So we need to vote on this.
Yep.
Okay, so then you wanna,
Oh, so I think if you want to say that, or I can say the motion, but it would be voting for all non-union employees, and then Kim here will abstain from Nadine. So how are we gonna go on that one?
okay,
So,
so that's our motion, or we gotta?
I think, one of you have to make that motion. That's what.
That would be what the motion would be. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, I'm just trying to talk through all of that. So we're gonna have to look at I think it's just a number we're approving tonight, and then this agreement's just gonna be an evolving thing. You guys should wanna look at that too.
Yep.
To make sure that that's, viable for everybody, I would think.
But yeah, that 4%, as you can see from that spreadsheet from before, it's built into that number, that 216 for the current year, so.
Is that the council, or is it the number that the council's already eyeing for?
That's for next month is what we're gonna be looking at.
Okay.
So, yep.
I'll make the motion that we accept the 4%. And I keep Nadine separate, and I would have, I would abstain
second.
from hers.
Second.
Okay, how do you vote? Harry?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
Belden?
Yep.
AB, yes. Okay, number 8, electric rate increase, financial advisor Chip Schultz. Resolution number 2601U, resolution of Board of Municipal Utilities of the City of Stuart, Iowa, amending previous resolution number 2214U by changing the electric rates of all classes of customers. Jolly.
Yeah, so Chip's not here this evening, but as you can see from that resolution recommending what was from last month, a 2.5% rate increase approval. But from our financial advisor, to ensure the city is able to fund phase 1 and phase 2 of the electric systems improvement project, which was about 5.6 million. There are multiple financing arms that are part of the project. City council approved a $3.1 million TIP application, which is about a $800,000 saving to the utility instead of using electric bonds to fund the project. But in regards to the previously approved 2.5% rate increase recommendation, I should say, Chip and myself are still reviewing multiple scenarios to be discussed next month. But the overall increase over multiple years is closer to 11% based off of what Chip is doing based off his scenarios. So it's still up in the air. Doesn't have to be 11%. There are some scenarios we're looking at right now where we're potentially paying off some of that 2017 kind of revenue bonds there to kind of help pay down some of that audit finding. But basically, our debt to revenue ratio has to be 1.25% based off of the amount of debt we have, and so that's how he's getting to 11% currently. So he's running scenarios where maybe it's commercial industrial that are kind of footing the increase instead of primarily residential, and so we'll talk about that next month. But his purpose for this evening is to hopefully table this approval so that we can have a multi-year kind of discussion about what those increases will be. I think that was the main thing. And then with that IEDA loan as well, so that's up to $2.5 million for the Energy Infrastructure Revolving Loan Program. That one closes on December 4th. But again, for that to be approved on their side, we're gonna have to have some type of multi-year increase. We haven't had a significant rate increase since 2017, so I think at this point, yeah, Chip would recommend that we look to a multi-year process instead of just a one-year increase at this time, so.
Do we need to rescind what we did at the last meeting, or just table this at this
I would
point?
just table this, because that was just a recommendation for this month, so.
Okay, city administrator reports.
So I think one thing we want to just mention with the financial statements here, so on page 1, you can see about $7.4 million at the end of the fiscal year for total cash. In the utility side, on page 2, that's where you'll find the 80% franchise fee cost share allocation. So ending the year, we ended with $90,219. On the year-to-date summary, on this page and also page 3, you'll see the planned transfer for the water revenue sinking fund here. That's just a planned transfer to ensure that we have set-aside funds for principal payments. And this is tied to the 2024 water revenue bond issuance for the water tower and the water main improvements that were originally issued in 22. For our payment agreements, there were 7 new payment agreements in June. So you'll see that'd be page 5 here with a little summary here. Plus, in addition, there were 2 paid in full payment agreements as well, but no changes to delinquent accounts or delinquent account payments in full. I think my ACD here too. So just overall, I think my overall report is this is my 3rd full week here, so I just wanted to say, glad to be here at Stuart. So had our first city council meeting, so last week now, but it's been great to be able to tour our operations. Last week I was over with Pat and Ben as well, going over water and electric and some of our planned improvements and some things to potentially, look for in the future years too. So Forrest and I, we're taking kind of the lead on developing a capital improvement plan. I think the city's well overdue to having a 5-year kind of outlook on what the infrastructure needs are. So not only looking at our utilities, but also looking at our sewer, our streets, our parks and recreation, just kind of compiling that all into one plan so that we have a kind of a guiding vision document that can kind of help us kind of stay in line when we're doing our annual fiscal year budgeting. So some things that I'm working on right now, like we mentioned on the HR side, is the job descriptions, organizational chart, performance review process, but also trying to help streamline the budget process too by trying to arm our department heads kind of with the ability to come to the city council, especially when you have these budget work sessions, to identify what their long-term staffing plans are and their needs, but also going over a line by line. It's going to be a very long budget work session process, but really going over the salary line items, benefits, the office supply costs, expense costs, professional development. I think something we need to start prioritizing as well for our staff and building that into the budget. So It might be, 2 to 3 hour budget work sessions. I hope everyone's excited for it, but I think it's for good reason, especially, like I said, this next budget is the first year that the cities are gonna be under that 2% restriction within the general fund. So it's gonna be a lot of tough conversations, but this is a community with a lot of momentum, and, we wanna see that continue to move forward. So glad to be here.
Glad you're here.